Ki-hyun walked into the training chamber with his hands in his pockets. The room was huge and bright, with walls that seemed to glow from inside. He had been at the Unified Galactic Academy for almost a year now, and he still felt like he did not fully belong. Not because anyone was unkind to him, it was something else. Something about the way everyone else seemed so sure of themselves. Around him, students from 17 different species stood in neat rows. There was Hye-won, a Draconi engineer with scales that changed color when she was thinking. Her species had been building advanced machines for over 5,000 years. Next to her stood Teo, a tall luminite whose skin glowed with soft blue light. His people had mastered energy weapons thousands of years ago. Then there was Jiho, a crystalline being who could solve math problems faster than most computers. Every other student seemed to come from worlds where everything was perfect, advanced, and planned out to the smallest detail. Ki-hyun was the only human in the training center, the only one from Earth. The drill master entered the chamber. His name was Vexrath, and he looked nothing like anything Ki-hyun had ever seen before. His body was tall and thin, with skin that looked like it was made of pure metal. His eyes were cold and did not seem to feel much warmth toward anyone. He had been teaching at the academy for over 300 years, and his method was always the same, hard, strict, and without mercy. "Today," Vexrath said, his voice deep and serious, "we will do an emergency test. Imagine that your ship has crashed on an unknown planet. You have only a few hours before enemy forces arrive. Your tools are broken. Your weapons are gone. Your technology does not work. You have only the materials around you. Your only job is to make weapons from what you can find. You must survive." He pointed to a section of the training room where different materials had been left on the ground. There were pieces of metal, some rocks, wooden sticks, plastic tubes, wires, and many other things. Nothing was organized. Nothing was clear. It all just looked like trash to most of the students. "You have 2 hours," Vexrath continued. "During that time, you must create weapons that can help you fight against the Krish warriors. These are the creatures that will attack you. They are fast, strong, and very dangerous. Their bodies are covered with hard shells that normal weapons cannot hurt easily. You must think fast. You must be creative. You must be ready for anything." The students looked at each other with worry. Hye-won touched her chin, thinking hard. Taeyo's skin grew darker, which meant he was scared. Jiho began to calculate something, his crystal body making small sounds as he thought. But Ki-hyun did not move. He did not look worried. He did not start picking up materials randomly like the others. Instead, he closed his eyes for just a moment, then opened them again. Then he began to walk slowly toward the pile of materials. What none of the other students knew was that Ki-hyun had been preparing for this exact moment for 3 months. 3 months of secret work. 3 months of studying old human history. 3 months of making plans and drawings and designs. Ki-hyun had grown up on Earth, in Seoul, a city with millions of people. But he had always been interested in how humans used to survive before they had modern technology. He read about ancient weapons. He learned how hunters made spears. He studied how soldiers in old wars built catapults and traps. He read about explosives and mechanics and ways to use simple materials to make powerful tools. When he came to the academy, he realized something important. All the other students came from worlds where everything was already made, where scientists had spent thousands of years making perfect tools, where weapons were built in factories by machines, where nothing was done by hand anymore. But humans were different. Humans had always lived by making things with their hands. Humans had always found new ways to solve problems. Humans had always looked at junk and trash and found ways to make it into something useful. So Ki-hyun had made a plan. He had studied the materials that would be in the training chamber. He had drawn designs for 47 different weapons, 47 different ways to use common objects to hurt enemies, 47 different solutions for different situations. He had hidden his designs in his room, written down carefully with pictures and instructions. He had memorized every single one. As the other students began to panic and randomly pick up materials, Ki-hyun moved with purpose. He knew exactly what he needed. He knew exactly what to build first. His hands moved quickly. He picked up a metal rod and several pieces of hard plastic. He found some rope made of strong material. He took a flat piece of metal and sharpened it on a rock. In less than 10 minutes, he had built his first weapon. It was a staff. It looked simple, but it was strong and deadly. The handle was wrapped with rope so it would not slip. The top had a sharp, flat edge. The bottom was heavy and thick, good for hitting hard. Around him, the other students were still struggling. Haewon had picked up pieces of a broken machine and was trying to rebuild something. Teo was trying to build some kind of energy tool, but it was not working. The materials here were not the same as what he was used to. Jiho was drawing mathematical patterns on the ground, trying to plan something big, but he had not actually built anything yet. Ki-hyun did not stop with just one weapon. He began to build his second weapon. This one was different. He took some plastic tubes and filled them with small metal pieces. He connected them with springs that he had found. When these springs were released, they would throw the metal pieces very far and very fast. It was simple but deadly. Then came his third weapon. This one was more complex. He took thin rope and created a trap. He connected it to a heavy metal plate that hung from the ceiling. When something hit the rope, the plate would fall down. It would be like a giant hammer coming down from above. The 2 hours passed quickly. By the time Vexarath said to stop working, Ki-hyun had built 6 different weapons. Each one was different. Each one was designed for a different situation. Each one would work perfectly against the creatures they would face. Haewon had managed to build a basic launcher. Teo had created something that looked like an energy weapon but was not very strong. Jiho had made a complex system of traps, but had not finished it completely. The other students looked at what Ki-hyun had made with surprise in their eyes. None of them expected him to build so much. None of them expected a human to understand weapons so well. But the real test was about to begin. Vexarath called for the simulation to start. The holographic creatures would appear now. The real battle was about to happen. Ki-hyun picked up his first weapon, the staff, and waited for the chamber doors to open. He was calm. He was ready. He knew what was coming. He had prepared for this moment his whole life. He was a human, and humans always found a way. The chamber doors burst open with a sound like thunder. The holograms were not gentle or simple. They were real-looking. They moved like actual creatures. They looked dangerous. The Krish warriors stepped into the chamber. They were tall, maybe 3 meters high. Their bodies were covered with hard brown shells that looked like armor. Their arms had sharp claws at the end, claws that could cut through metal. Their mouths had rows of teeth. When they moved, the ground seemed to shake. The simulation had started. This was the real test now. Haewon screamed. She was good at building machines, but she was not good at fighting. She ran to the side of the chamber and tried to hide behind her broken launcher. Teo's skin turned very dark, almost black. He tried to use his energy weapon, but it did not work properly on the materials he had created. The energy just went everywhere without hitting anything important. Jiho tried to activate one of his traps, but the creatures were too fast. They jumped over his plans. They did not follow the paths he had designed for them, but Ki-hyun was different. When the first Krish warrior ran at him, Ki-hyun did not run away. He did not try to hide. He raised his staff weapon and moved forward. The creature swiped its sharp claw at Ki-hyun's head. Ki-hyun moved his staff to block the attack. The claw hit the metal staff and made sparks fly. The creature was fast and strong, but Ki-hyun was faster. He had studied human fighting methods from thousands of years of history. He knew how to move. He knew how to balance. He knew how to hit. Ki-hyun stepped to the side. Then he hit the creature hard in the center of its body with the heavy bottom of his staff. The creature made a sound like a bell ringing and fell backward. Before it could stand up again, Ki-hyun used his staff to pin its sharp claw to the ground. The creature tried to move, but it could not break free from Ki-hyun's hold. That first creature was defeated. The second creature came at him from the left. Ki-hyun threw down his staff and pulled out his second weapon, the metal piece thrower. He activated the spring system inside. Metal pieces shot out like rain. Some of them hit the creature's hard shell and bounced off, but some of them found the soft parts between the shells. The creature screamed and fell back. 3 more Krish warriors were coming now. This was getting serious. This was becoming real danger. Ki-hyun ran toward the part of the chamber where he had set up his third weapon, the rope trap. He ran right toward it, and the creatures followed him. They were fast. Their claws clicked on the ground as they ran. Their mouths were open, showing their teeth. Just as Ki-hyun reached the spot, the first creature stepped exactly where the trap was set. The rope went tight. The heavy metal plate fell from above. It came down like a meteor from the sky. The creature did not even have time to jump out of the way. The metal plate hit it hard, and the creature went down and did not get up. Around the chamber, the other students were watching. Their eyes were big with surprise. How was Ki-hyun doing this? How was he so ready for everything? Hae-won watched from her hiding place and started to understand something. Ki-hyun was not just lucky. He was not just fast. He was using the weapons like he had practiced with them 100 times before. Like he knew exactly where to go and what to do next. Ji-ho, being mathematical in his thinking, started to calculate. The chances of Ki-hyun building all these different weapons in 2 hours were very low. The chances of him knowing exactly how to use each one perfectly were even lower. Something was wrong here. Something did not add up. The battle continued. Ki-hyun pulled out his fourth weapon now. This was a different kind of thing. It was a stick with something sharp at the end. It looked simple, but it was designed to go between the creature's shells and hurt the soft parts inside. Ki-hyun moved it like he had been born holding it. He pushed and twisted and turned. 2 more Krish warriors fell. Now there were 6 creatures left. They seemed to understand that one human with simple weapons should not be this much trouble. They seemed to understand that something was different about this situation. Ki-hyun pulled back and took a moment. He was not tired. His breathing was calm and controlled. But he was thinking. He was deciding which weapon to use next. The creatures were getting smarter. They were moving in a circle around him now, trying to attack from many directions at once. This was when Ki-hyun used his 5th weapon. He had created a kind of bomb. It was not a big bomb like the ones that humans used in wars. It was a small thing made from materials that made loud sounds and bright lights. It was designed to confuse and scare enemies. Ki-hyun threw it to the ground. There was a huge sound. There was a huge light. The creatures covered their eyes and shook with fear. In that moment of confusion, Ki-hyun moved. He used 3 of his other weapons at the same time. The staff, the metal thrower, the pointed stick. The creatures fell one by one. When the battle ended, Ki-hyun was still standing. He was not hurt. His clothes had some damage from the sharp claws, but his body was fine. Around him, 14 Krish warriors lay defeated. Vexarath ended the simulation. The holograms disappeared. The chamber became quiet and still. The other students came out from their hiding places slowly. They looked at Ki-hyun like he was something from another world. But Ki-hyun was not looking at them. He was looking down at his hands. His hands were shaking just a little bit. Just a small amount that nobody else could see. The truth was, Ki-hyun had been scared. He had been frightened the whole time, but he had not let fear stop him. He had just kept moving forward, using what he knew, doing what he had prepared for. Hae-won walked up to him slowly. "How did you know how to do all of that?" she asked. "How did you build so many weapons? How did you know exactly how to use each one?" Ki-hyun did not answer right away. He was still catching his breath. He was still thinking about what had just happened. Finally, he said something quiet but clear. I studied. I prepared. I read about human history. I learned how humans survived for thousands of years without technology. I memorized different ways to make weapons. I practiced in my room where nobody could see me. Jiho walked up to them both. His crystal body made small sounds as he moved. You did not improvise, he said. You prepared. You planned. You did not follow the rules of this test. Ki-hyun looked at Jiho in the eye. Maybe, he said, but I survived. And I will survive again, even if I have no plans. Even if I have nothing prepared. That is what humans do. We plan, and then we adapt. We prepare, and then we change. That is the secret of human strength. Vexarath watched from where he was sitting. He did not say anything yet, but his eyes were thinking. His eyes were calculating something important. Something was beginning to form in his mind about this human student. Something that would change everything. The next morning, Ki-hyun was called to the discipline office. He knew it was coming. He had known it would happen since the moment Jiho said those words. You did not improvise. You prepared. The office was cold and gray. Everything in it was made of hard material that looked like metal, but felt like stone. Vexarath sat behind a big desk. Next to him was another instructor, someone Ki-hyun had never seen before. This other instructor had 4 arms and eyes that were pure white, like clouds. Cadet Ki-hyun, Vexarath said, his voice like ice. You broke the fundamental rules of this academy. The test was about improvisation. The test was about thinking fast when you have nothing. The test was about using your mind to solve a problem right now, in this moment. Ki-hyun stood very still. He did not try to lie. He did not try to make excuses. You had prepared 47 weapon designs, Vexarath continued. You had memorized them. You had practiced building them in secret. You did not improvise. You performed a plan that you had already made. The 4-armed instructor spoke now. His voice sounded like wind moving through empty spaces. This is not how we teach at this academy. This is not how advanced species solve problems. We believe in perfection. We believe in planning. We believe in getting things right before we begin. But what you did was use old methods. Human methods. Methods from a species that is still learning. Ki-hyun wanted to say something. He wanted to explain. But he stayed quiet. He listened. However, Vexarath said slowly, I am giving you a choice. You can accept punishment and be sent back to Earth. Or you can prove to me that you understand the real meaning of improvisation. You can show me that what you did was not just copying old ideas. You can show me that you can truly think and create in the moment. Ki-hyun looked up. What do I have to do? He asked. There will be a second test, Vexarath said. It will be in 48 hours. You will not be allowed to bring any papers. You will not be allowed to bring any notes. You will not be allowed to bring any prepared designs. You will go into a completely different environment, an environment you have never seen before. And you will have to create weapons again using only what you find there, true improvisation. Can you do this? Ki-hyun thought for a moment. The truth was, he was not sure. He had prepared for the first test because he was afraid of failing. He had prepared because he did not trust his own mind to solve problems without help. But now, he had no choice. Yes, Ki-hyun said. I can do this. That same day, Minji found him sitting alone in the training center. Minji was also human. She came from a city on Earth called Seoul, the same city where Ki-hyun had grown up. She was not as strong as Ki-hyun, and she was not as quick to learn the strange rules of the academy. But she was kind and honest. Everyone is talking about you, Minji said. She sat down next to him. They are saying you cheated. They are saying you used old human tricks to win. It is true, Ki-hyun said. I did prepare. I did cheat in a way. Minji was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "But you also won. You defeated 14 creatures by yourself while the rest of us could not defeat even one. So maybe preparing is not the same as cheating. Maybe it is just being smart." Ki-hyun shook his head. The test was about improvisation. It was about thinking fast and solving problems in the moment. I did not do that. I just used plans I had already made. "But you said something at the end," Minji said. She was trying to remember his exact words. "You said that humans plan and then adapt. You said that humans prepare and then change. So maybe the test was actually about both things. Maybe you were supposed to prepare and then improvise too." Ki-hyun had not thought about it that way before. Minji was smart. She saw something that even he had not understood about himself. Over the next 48 hours, Ki-hyun did something strange. He did not study anything. He did not read books about weapons. He did not make any new plans. Instead, he walked around the academy and looked at things. He looked at how nature worked. He looked at how plants grew. He looked at how water moved. He looked at how animals behaved. He was learning about the world in a new way, not from books or from old history, from actually seeing things with his own eyes. He also thought about what it meant to improvise. Improvisation was not just making something up with no knowledge. Real improvisation required understanding how things worked. It required knowing science and math and nature. But then, with all that knowledge, you had to be willing to do something new, something that had never been done before. The morning of the second test came. Vexrath took Ki-hyun to a different place. This was not the training chamber. This was outside. This was a real jungle. The plants were green and tall. The ground was wet and muddy. The air was thick and hard to breathe. "You have the same 2 hours," Vexrath said. "You must survive a simulated attack. You must create weapons using only what you find here. You must prove that you can improvise." Then Vexrath walked away and left Ki-hyun alone. Ki-hyun stood in the jungle for a long moment. His heart was beating fast. His mind was racing. Then he took a deep breath. He closed his eyes for just a second. When he opened them again, he was calm. He was ready. He walked forward into the jungle. He had no plans. He had no prepared designs. He had only his knowledge and his ability to think fast. He had only his understanding of how things worked and how to make things work in new ways. He began to look at the plants around him. There was a vine that was very strong. There was a rock that was very sharp. There was a tree with wood that was very hard. There was a liquid from a plant that looked dangerous, like poison maybe. In his mind, Ki-hyun began to see possibilities, not plans, not designs he had memorized, but real possibilities, real ways to use what he saw to make weapons that could work. He began to build. This time, everything was different. This time, everything was new. This time, Ki-hyun was truly improvising for the first time in his life. Ki-hyun worked quickly, but not with panic. He moved through the jungle like he understood it, like he belonged there. His hands touched different plants and rocks and pieces of wood. Each time his hands touched something, his brain was thinking, "What is this made of? How hard is it? How strong is it? What can it do?" The first weapon he made was different from anything he had built before. He took a vine that was strong like rope. He found 2 pieces of wood that were straight and long. He bent the wood carefully and the vines held them in place. Then he used smaller vines to create something tight and strong. He had made a bow. It was simple, but it was perfect. The string was made from the strongest vine. An arrow was made from a straight branch. As he was finishing the bow, he saw something interesting. There were plants nearby that had seeds inside them. The seeds were hard and small, like tiny rocks. Ki-hyun picked some of them. Then he thought about mixing them with something. He looked around more carefully and found a plant with a white liquid inside. When he touched the liquid, it burned his hand just a little bit. Ki-hyun smiled. This was chemistry. This was science. This was improvisation. He spent 30 minutes making arrows that were filled with these seeds covered in the burning liquid. The arrows would hurt more than normal arrows. The arrows would burn. The arrows would be deadly. Then he moved to another part of the jungle. There was a place where the ground was soft and muddy. Ki-hyun studied this place carefully. He was thinking about traps now. He was thinking about ways to catch the creatures without having to fight them directly. He dug a deep hole in the soft ground. Then he covered it with branches and leaves. When a creature walked over it, it would fall into the hole. At the bottom of the hole, he placed sharp pieces of wood that were pointing up. It was cruel, maybe, but it was effective. It was survival. Then he looked up. He saw a thick branch above his head. He thought about using gravity and weight. He tied a heavy piece of rock to a vine that went over the branch. When he pulled down on the other end of the vine, the rock went up high. If something pulled the vine from the other side, the rock would come down hard. It was like a hammer from the sky. 2 hours went by very quickly. Ki-hyun had made many different weapons, but this time was different from the first test. He did not make them exactly the same way. Each one was slightly different because he had to use different materials. Each one was made from the real jungle, not from prepared materials in a training chamber. He had a bow with deadly arrows. He had 3 hidden traps. He had a system of heavy rocks that could fall from above. He had made a poison from plants that would make creatures sick or weak. He had created a kind of smoke that would make creatures cough and have trouble breathing. When the 2 hours ended, Vexwrath came back to get him. "Now," Vexwrath said, "let us see if you can truly improvise." The simulation began. The holographic Krish warriors appeared in the jungle. This time there were 20 of them, not 14 like in the first test. More creatures, more difficult. The first creature ran right into Ki-hyun's hidden trap. It fell into the hole and was hurt badly. It could not get up. The next 2 creatures came at him from different directions. Ki-hyun pulled out his bow. His hands moved smoothly. He had never really practiced with a bow before, but he knew how to make one work. His fingers pulled the string back. The arrow flew forward. It hit the first creature in the shoulder. The burning seeds on the arrow hurt it badly. The creature screamed and fell. The second creature jumped too high. It jumped right over the trap. But when it landed, its feet came down on another trap. A heavy rock fell from above. The rock hit the creature and knocked it unconscious. Now there were 17 creatures left. They were getting angry. They were getting smarter about the traps. They started to move in groups instead of alone. They worked together to keep the traps from working. This was when Ki-hyun had to truly improvise. He could not just use the same weapons again and again. He had to think of something new. He had to use the jungle in ways he had not planned. He ran to a place where the plants were very thick. The creatures followed him, but they were bigger and slower than he was. Their hard shells made them heavy. Their claws got caught in the plants. Ki-hyun pulled out the poison he had made. He blew it into the air. The poison spread like smoke. When the creatures breathed it in, they began to slow down. They began to feel weak and sick. Then Ki-hyun used his bow again. But this time he was not just shooting arrows. He was thinking about the angle. He was thinking about where the creatures would jump. He was thinking like a hunter who understood his prey. One by one, the creatures fell. Some were hit by arrows. Some fell into traps. Some breathed in the poison and became too weak to fight. Some were hit by the falling rocks. By the time the simulation ended, Ki-hyun had defeated 18 of the 20 creatures. He had done this without using any prepared plans, without using any memorized designs. He had done this by truly understanding the world around him and using that understanding to solve problems. When the simulation ended, Ki-hyun fell to the ground. He was tired now, very tired. His body was shaking from all the work. His mind was exhausted from thinking so hard and so fast. Vexwrath walked over to him slowly. The old instructor looked down at the human student. For a long moment he said nothing. Then Vexwrath said, "You have shown me something important, Ki-hyun. You have shown me that improvisation is not just making things up. Improvisation is using what you know to create something new. You prepared by learning about the world. You improvised by using that learning in new ways." Ki-hyun was breathing hard. He could barely stand up, but he listened. "You have also shown me something about your species," Vexwrath continued. "Humans are not the strongest. Humans are not the fastest. But humans know how to survive by thinking, by learning, by adapting. This is a power that most advanced species have forgotten." Minji was watching from the safety area with the other students. She was smiling. She was proud of Ki-hyun. She was proud of being human. Ki-hyun finally stood up. His legs were shaking, but he stood. He looked at Vexwrath in the eye. "Thank you for the second chance," Ki-hyun said. "Thank you for teaching me something," Vexwrath said. "Now come. You have much to do. You have a whole academy waiting to learn what you have learned today." 3 days later, the entire academy was called to a special gathering. Everyone from every level came. Students from different species filled the big hall. Teachers and instructors stood on the sides. The director of the academy, a being made of pure light and mathematics called Zinral, sat in the highest seat. Vexwrath stood in the middle of the hall. Behind him stood Ki-hyun. Next to Vexwrath stood the four-armed instructor and 2 other important teachers from the academy. "I have called you all here," Vexwrath said, his voice filling the entire hall, "because something important happened this week. Something that changed how I understand learning. Something that changed how I understand species from across the galaxy." Everyone was quiet. Nobody knew what he was going to say. "This human student," Vexwrath pointed to Ki-hyun, "at first appeared to break our rules. He prepared instead of improvising. This seemed like a problem. This seemed like cheating, but it was not." Vexwrath began to walk around the hall slowly. "Let me tell you about different ways of learning. Most of you come from species that have advanced far. Your worlds are old. Your technologies are perfect. Your weapons are made by machines that have made the same weapons for thousands of years. Your knowledge comes from books and computers. You know everything before you start." He paused and looked at the students. "This is good. This is efficient. But it has a problem. When something new happens, something that your books do not have the answer for, you do not know what to do. You cannot think in a way that is not already programmed into your mind." Then Vexwrath pointed at Ki-hyun again. "But humans are different. Humans come from a young world. Humans do not have thousands of years of perfect technology. Humans have had to survive by being smart, by learning to prepare, by learning to plan, but also by learning to change when their plans do not work. Humans prepare not because they are afraid of the unknown. Humans prepare because they respect the unknown. They know that things will change, so they prepare and then they adapt." Haiwan listened carefully. She was beginning to understand something. The way she made things, always trying to make them perfect, always following exact instructions, was not the only way to make things. Teo's skin began to glow brighter. He was understanding something too. His people had always used energy in the same way, but maybe there were new ways. Maybe there were different ways to use power. Ji-ho was calculating something in his mind. He was creating formulas for this new way of thinking, for this balance between preparation and change, for this idea that plans were not prisons, plans were foundations. "I have decided something," Vexwrath said. "I am going to create a new class, a class called the Human Philosophy of Survival. This class will teach all species how to prepare and adapt at the same time. This class will teach how to use knowledge as a tool for thinking instead of as a wall that blocks new thoughts. The Academy Director Zinral, the being made of light, began to make sounds of approval. "This is good," the director said. His voice was like music made from mathematics. "This is what the Academy needs. This is how we will become stronger." Vexarath continued, "And this human, Ki-hyun, will be my teacher assistant in this new class. He will show you all how to think like a human, how to prepare and then throw away your preparations if they do not work, how to keep learning even after you think you know everything." The hall filled with sounds of agreement. Even the students who had laughed at Ki-hyun before were now nodding and accepting this new idea. After the gathering, many students came to talk to Ki-hyun. They had questions. They wanted to understand more about this human way of thinking. Haewon came to him with a problem. "I want to build a machine that can move on different types of ground. But I do not know how to make it work on both hard ground and soft ground. If I follow my normal way, I have to make a choice, hard ground or soft ground, but I cannot make it do both." Ki-hyun thought for a moment. "What if you did not try to make one machine that does both?" he asked. "What if you made a machine with parts that can change, parts that can move and shift depending on the ground, like how a human hand has 5 fingers that can do different things?" Haewon's scales changed color as she thought about this. She had never considered making a machine with changing parts. She had always thought about making machines that stayed the same. "That is good," she said. "That is very good." Teo came to him with a different question. "We Luminites believe that energy should flow in straight lines, pure and direct. But watching you in the jungle, I saw you make the energy work in circles, in traps, in systems. Why would you make energy complicated?" Ki-hyun smiled. "Because sometimes the complicated way is stronger. Because sometimes going straight is not the best way to win. Because humans learned long ago that the most powerful things are the ones that do not look powerful. A small action that starts a big reaction. This is what makes complicated systems strong." Teo's skin began to glow in new colors, colors that were mixed and beautiful. "I will experiment with this," he said. "I will try to make energy that goes in new directions." Jiho came with many questions. His mathematical mind wanted to understand the logic behind the human way. "What is the formula?" he asked. "What is the equation that balances preparation with adaptation?" Ki-hyun thought hard about this. "I do not know if there is a formula," he said finally. "Maybe the formula is different for every situation. Maybe the balance changes depending on what you are trying to do. Maybe the real formula is know yourself well enough to know when to follow your plan and when to break it." Jiho made mathematical sounds as he processed this. It was not a clean equation. It was not a perfect formula, but it was true. It was flexible. It was human. Minji found Ki-hyun sitting alone later that day. "I am proud of you," she said. "You showed everyone what humans really are." "I showed them what we can become," Ki-hyun said. "When we take what we have learned and use it to learn something new. When we stop being afraid of not knowing and start being excited about discovering." "Do you think they will really learn?" Minji asked. "Do you think the other species will really change how they think?" Ki-hyun looked out at the academy. He looked at the students from 17 different species. Some of them were still confused. Some of them were excited. Some of them were scared of this new way of thinking. "Some will," he said. "Some will not. But that is okay. That is the human way too. We do not force people to change. We just show them what is possible. Then they choose for themselves." That night, as Ki-hyun lay in his room, he thought about everything that had happened. He thought about the fear he had felt. He thought about the preparation that had felt like cheating. He thought about the second test, when he had truly improvised for the first time. He understood now. The 47 weapons were not his real strength. His real strength was something deeper. It was the ability to look at the world and see possibilities. It was the ability to prepare but not be trapped by preparation. It was the ability to fail and try again. This was what being human meant, and he was going to teach this to everyone who would listen.